Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Get Off My Lawn Podcast's YouTube channel, where we are delighting and entertaining you with classic episodes from the Get Off My Lawn Podcast. I am your genial host, Kevin, and today's episode is actually one of my favorites. I wanted to make sure we get this on the YouTube channel as soon as I was able to get it up onto the YouTube channel. A few years ago, one of my heroes, a guy named Mark Thompson, wrote a book. Before that, he was heavily into the wonderful world of radio. As I have said repeatedly already on this YouTube channel and back on the podcast itself, I was born into the time of radio, the heyday of radio, in particular morning radio here in Southern California. You could not grow up in Southern California in the 1980s and 1990s without names like Rick Dees and Mark and Brian being, it was conversation. It was what everybody was talking about. Eventually, yes, for the KROQ fans, there was Kevin and Bean, and then, yes, eventually there was Howard friggin' Stern. But 80s radio, 90s radio, those were the people that everybody knew. You knew those DJs. You knew those morning hosts. And like I said, Mark and Brian was a part of my childhood. I used to, by the way, this is another apologies to my high school teachers, particularly the teacher from Biology 2, wasn't Mr. Wallace. There were two Mr. Wallaces. This was the biology teacher, Mr. Wallace. He had a toothpick in his mouth at all times. I don't know what he said, because I had a little set of earbuds, and during his biology class, I would have Mark and Brian going. That was what happened. I would also be recording the Mark and Brian show while I was on the bus so that I could listen to it the next day on my Walkman. Anybody remember owning a Walkman? I remember owning a Walkman. So the Mark and Brian show was pivotal to my childhood, and it was an honor to be able to interview Mark Thompson, the Mark from Mark and Brian, about the show, about his experiences in radio, about writing a book, about acting. He also acted in the sitcom Reba. He produced and starred in a couple of movies, Mother Ghost being another one that we talk about. And so I just wanted to give people a chance to listen to that interview. In terms of being topical, Mark Thompson still hosts his own podcast. Yeah, he's my competition. I am not competition. But he does host his own podcast, and he is, I believe, in about 2 weeks appearing in Thousand Oaks giving a talk. So for those of you posting this, you can look it up and find out what's going on. So the podcast title is What You Do. And it's basically, his podcast is about an hour and a half of him rambling each day. And that's it. I mean, occasionally he has guests, but the bulk of it is just Mark Thompson being Mark Thompson. And that alone should be reason for you to check out the podcast if you haven't done so already. So I'm going to stop talking so that I can then start talking again on the podcast. But coming up again, Mark Thompson, his book, Don't Bump the Record Kid. It's available on, if you Google it, you'll find it. It's not available in bookstores. It was available online. I would recommend the audiobook if it is still available, because that is something that he recorded and added a lot of clips from his radio shows and radio days into. It's worth listening to. So that said, please listen to it. Please enjoy it. I don't have the cats in here today, but I have pictures of them there on the background so that I still have cat content. And yes, at the end of the podcast posted on YouTube, I will possibly post pictures or video of the cats so that you still have cat content even during the podcast. I knew that would be exciting for you. So there we go. I'm going to fade in some music and then fade out some music, and that'll be that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being my friends. Be good humans, hooty hoo, and all of that.
It's the Big Show! The Mark and Brian Big Show! It's really fun. We've been away for a while. Not sure we can do it anymore. It's the Big Show! The Mark and Brian really Big Show! Wow, 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 wow! Wow, 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 wow! Wow, 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 wow! Mark and Brian really big show, yeah!
It's the Get Off My Lawn podcast for the week of December 11th, 2022. On tonight's program, you'll hear broadcasting legend and Radio Hall of Famer Mark Thompson say,
Going to the beach? It's unbelievable. I mean, going to the beach to go to work is unbelievable.
No, wait, that was David Hasselhoff. But you will hear the longtime co-host of the Mark and Brian Show say,
I think that there's something dislodged in my brain. This is the kind of thing you don't talk about, you don't tell people that it happened, and I'm yelling that I did it.
Plus, we talk movies with film critic Tim Brennan. I'm your announcer, Craig, and now here's your genial host, Kevin.
Hello and welcome in to the podcast. Thank you for that beautiful announcing, as always, announcer Craig. How are you today, Craig?
I am doing wonderful.
It's a big show today.
Is it?
It is, and it might be, frankly, the reason that I brought back this podcast for another season was just to be able to let people hear this interview. I'm not exaggerating.
Oh, that's right. I know what you're about to say.
Yeah, well, that's because you just said it in the announcing. Yeah, we are going to be chatting with Mark Thompson, who is the Mark of Mark and Brian fame. He has done more than you know. He did sort of pioneer what became reality television. If you might remember the adventures of Mark and Brian, but that really started what became the concept of reality TV, of simply following people around with cameras and recording what they were doing and putting them in odd situations. And he started that. And he was also an actor, if you remember the sitcom Reba.
I remember the sitcom.
He played, if you go back, he played her boyfriend for a couple of episodes.
Very cool.
And he has done other things as well. He has written and produced other movies for himself. The one we mentioned and referenced in the interview is Mother Ghost, which he did with Kevin Pollak and Dana Delaney and Charles Durning, Gary Marshall, a bunch of other big name people.
Man, yeah.
And nobody saw it. And you need to see it. It's streaming, I think, on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And I
When did that originally come out?
Oh, it's been 15, maybe 20 years.
Okay.
But we talk about sort of why you haven't seen it, but we do. Well, he does. I recommend you see it too, but have a box of Kleenex handy.
All right.
As you know, you and I both have. Our parents are no longer with us, and this movie is centered around that concept of parents.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let me get a good stiff drink before
maybe two. So yes, I did in preparation for this interview, I did tell my sister she had to watch it, and she's texting me throughout just saying I can barely see the text through the tears in my eyes. But it's a good movie and it's worth watching, and it is funny too. But it's got Kevin Pollak in it. How can it not be funny? But
no kidding.
It is worth it. And this interview, for people, I am guessing we're going to have a lot of Mark and Brian listeners tuning into this podcast for the first time. Hello and hooty hoo and all of the other Mark and Brian related jokes. Yes. I don't get into the stuff that I've already heard Mark Thompson talk about time and time and time again. So if you're expecting me to ask him if he really gets along with Brian, or if you're expecting me to, ask those types of questions, you've already heard them. So you don't need to hear them again. So I literally came to him with a list of things I wanted to talk about, things that I'd read in the book, because I did read the book. It's now out, and we talk about how to find it and how to purchase it. I'm actually going to get the audiobook when it gets released. So even though
is he doing the read on that?
He's doing the read and including clips from the radio show to it as well. So
perfect.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, we haven't had the cat make an appearance on the podcast yet, and he's very close. He's very close. For those, again, who do not know, I was a lifelong fan of dogs, and then I married a woman who liked both cats and dogs, and now I have 2 cats. And if you know me at all, you know that's a bizarre change in my life.
Just keep saying it over. I have 2 cats. I have 2 cats.
I am the crazy cat lady. And yeah, that's happened.
Do you have a Merce to carry your cats in?
I do not, because their claws are really sharp, and as it is, they've managed to do quite a bit of damage to me. What I've learned about cats that is different from dogs is that cats will cuddle, but only on their terms.
Well, everything is on their terms.
Yes.
Perhaps you should try a tactical Merce.
A Kevlar Merce?
Yes.
Yeah, it's When they want to be cuddly, they're the most adorable creatures on the planet. And when they want to set fire to the building and level it, they'll do that too. It's entirely up to them.
Yes, and that switch moves rapidly.
Yes, it does. So I don't want to spend too much time with our little chat because, like I said, I know Mark and Brian listeners enough to know they don't give a crap what you and I are talking about right now.
Fair enough.
I get that. I understand that. So, wasting no time, and I'm trying to toss in as many sort of Mark and Brian jokes as I can into this. You were more of a KROQ listener back in the 80s and 90s, weren't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Pirate radio, I think, was out there then too.
Definitely pirate radio for sure.
Yeah. Mark and Brian listeners, for those, I guess I should explain, in case people are tuning in who don't know who Mark and Brian are, is they started in Birmingham, Alabama back in the 1980s, and normally in the world of radio, when you are in that small of a market, you then sort of slowly move your way up. You might go from Birmingham to Dallas, Texas, or something. They went straight from being in a tiny, tiny market to being in really one of the largest radio markets on the planet. And they proceeded to then become number one and held that position for several years until, well, Howard Stern popped up and, yeah, then things took a turn. Then we talk a little bit, too, about in the mid-'90s, KLOS attempted a format change, which destroyed the station. You were still in college. It happened when I was in college. And like I said, I talked with Mark Thompson about it. I went away and then came back, and instead of it being classic rock, it was almost like alternative music was on it for a couple of years. And it was painful to listen to. And yeah, I don't think the station really ever fully recovered. And now it's 90 minutes of commercials an hour. And I don't know how they managed to do that when an hour is only 60 minutes. But yeah.
I think it's really hard when stations go through a change like that.
And
it doesn't seem to ever be bigger than it was.
Yeah, and for those expecting to hear Mark Thompson and I give like a rousing pep talk for the future of broadcasting, sorry, no. It's particularly, I do recommend you buy his book if for no other reason than to really hear how radio has changed from the perspective of someone who's spent decades in it, because it's not really a business anymore that caters to the community that it used to cater to. You know, local radio used to be where people went for moments that occurred in the news. You know, that was, KMET was the big radio station in LA in the early 1980s, and when John Lennon was shot and killed, people didn't turn on the TV to find out about it. They turned on a radio station to find out about it and to hear his music and to hear people who'd met him talk about, his life and his legacy. And those days are gone. They just don't exist anymore. The reason why podcasting exists is for broadcasters. If you want to be a broadcaster, there's not that many jobs in radio anymore. And the ones that are out there are underpaid, and it's usually a mass market type of a thing. So we will talk and depress the crap out of you as we talk about the state of radio right now. But that's what you're going to hear. Coming up momentarily is Mark Thompson. That should be one of the next voices you hear. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Yes. Good morning, Kevin.
How you doing?
I'm okay, man. How are you?
I am living the dream.
Living the dream.
Well, it sounds good, doesn't it?
All right. Well, then I am too.
Okay. I have to tell you, because you are, as you are fond of saying, the RG, that I have done a couple of interviews in the last couple of weeks, and my technology has been perfect with every single one of them. And I go to set yours up today, and everything that could go wrong goes wrong. So I think somehow you're responsible for it. I'm not sure how, but you are.
I take my blame. Well, did you get it fixed?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let me shut this door. Hang on just a second.
Okay.
All right. I think we're ready. Right. Apart from the occasional dog bark.
Well, that is to be expected. We are professional broadcasters after all.
Yes.
Joining me, if you could not tell, is the voice of Mark Thompson. Well, all of Mark Thompson, but you'll just hear the voice. Mark Thompson, for those who might not know, is a broadcasting legend. He's in the Hall of Fame. He, for over 2.5 decades, was the co-host of the Mark and Brian radio show. He was number one. He had TV shows. He had movies. And now he has a book called Don't Bump the Record, Kid. And we're going to talk to him. Mark Thompson, thank you for being on the show.
To hear you say all that stuff, movies and
exhausting, isn't
TV
it?
shows. I mean, why don't I just quit? What is wrong with this scenario? I need to stop. Well, thank you for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Well, I did get a chance to read through the book, and I have lots of questions, probably more than our Zoom time will allow, but I will go through what I can with you here in the time that I've been given. And thank you for your time. First of all, are there any more Broadcasting Hall of Famers coming down the road, or have we seen sort of the end of broadcasting as we know it?
Well, I think we have. Radio that I fell in love with, which was 24 hours live, 4 to 5 people, spending 24 hours playing records for you and reading you the weather and that kind of thing. Local radio has changed, and I think forever, because a lot of these major companies got involved where they would buy 400 to 500, 600 radio stations, and they found a much cheaper way to present your local radio. And a lot of that is by firing staff, where a radio station might have had 200 people running it. They cut it down to 50 or 40 people. The jocks are recorded. Some of them, like, for example, in Charlotte, where I live part of the year, I've got a buddy who does afternoons on a local radio station, but he lives in LA. I'm not even sure he's ever been to Charlotte. So that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
When you listen to much local radio, it is a pre-recorded computer playing the recorded voice and the local weather and the whatever. So I do, like somebody asked me the other day, hey, my son wants to get into radio. What advice do you have? And I said, good luck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you would break into it at this point. It's just, I know I'm the old guy, bitching. I remember when it was great, but it isn't what it was. Everything changes, and I get that, but local radio certainly has.
Sure. Talking specifically with your show and your shows, but I am a longtime listener. I freely admit that. Was with you pretty much from the beginning in LA here. I was going to high school at the time. Around 1992, I went to college up in Washington State. I came back in 1996. What happened in the 4 years I was gone, Mark?
Well, that was, I'm assuming you're talking about the state of radio or Mark and Brian?
Yeah, and the state of, I came back and KLOS was suddenly no longer a classic rock station. There was Syndicate, the Grease Man was on, whatever that was, and there was a couple of other things as well. It wasn't close to what I'd remembered. And like you said, change happens. I get the change happens, but it seems so dramatic for a station that had been so solid for decades to have gone through that change.
Yeah, well, that was an odd time. I don't remember who was programming KLOS at that time. Mark and Brian was still fairly solid at that point, but there was a program director brought in that wanted to reinvent KLOS. They even changed the logo.
Yeah.
And they started playing, I don't know what it wasn't classic rock.
No.
I don't know exactly. And see, Mark and Brian, at that point, we had achieved a status where we were kind of disconnected from the radio station because we didn't play records. We didn't play music.
Right.
We talked for 4 hours. And then, so there was us, and then there was whatever KLOS did after that. And while I don't have any specifics, I'd like the jocks that they brought in. They brought a lot of different jocks in, and half of them I never met. So, yeah, I don't know, but it was certainly not your daddy's KLOS anymore.
Yeah. And, your show obviously went through a lot of different personnel changes. I do want to give a shout out to Laura Stringer for helping me hook me up with this interview here. And she's been just, could you be in the Hall of Fame without her? Let's be honest.
Oh, no. When I was with Mark and Brian in the late 80s and the early 90s, we were just on fire. We were white hot and doing a completely new kind of morning radio without realizing that we were doing it. But I remember thinking, we're going in the Hall of Fame, because if you don't put us in, who do you put in? And I thought it was going to be kind of like the NFL. When I walked away from the show, we would wait the 5 years that you're supposed to wait, and then they put you in. And so 5 years passed, 6, 7, 8, And then Laura called and said, what's going on with this? And I said, I don't know. And so Laura launched a massive campaign to get us in. And even though we had more votes than anybody that first year, we didn't get in, they passed. And it was the second year that we got in. And I just, I did speak with Craig Kitchen, the president of the Radio Hall of Fame, and he told me that we were inducted into the Hall of Fame because of those first few groundbreaking years, those first 5 or 6 years. So even though we did the Mark and Brian show for 27, it was that first 5 that were magical. And I knew what he was talking about. I've always considered that to be the sweet spot of what we did for that many years. Yeah. And I say it in the book, in the world of entertainment, if you're going to get into it, and if you're lucky enough to get your 15 minutes of fame, enjoy it while you're there and sock your money away, because the next pretty face is going to come along and move you to the back of the line. And you don't have to agree with that. You don't even have to like it, obviously, but you need to understand it, because that is the world of entertainment. While we were groundbreaking and very good at what we did, after a while, people hear what you do, or as an actor, they see what you do. And then after a while, they start looking around for somebody who does it as well or better. So that happened to us, and it happens to pretty much anybody in entertainment.
Sure. Now, when you were doing the show, you talked extensively in the book about it, but hopefully you can spend a minute or two talking to me about it. You had said that you kind of put a version of yourself on the radio, the version that was going to be suitable for the classic rock audience. How do you make that decision? I'm horrible at it. I freely admit that. What I'm thinking comes out of my mouth when it shouldn't, and I've gotten in more than enough trouble.
I think you're doing great.
Yeah, you've only talked to me for 10 minutes. But how do you decide what's going to fly and what isn't going to fly?
Well, you've got to understand that was a complete mess. We went from white hot #1 radio on the NBC television schedule on Sunday nights up against 60 Minutes, and it all came falling down quite literally in the same month or two. In 1992, we lost the #1. The television show was canceled in an embarrassing, debilitating failure. And my world, I think everybody's world, was upside down at that point, because it is very difficult. It's one thing to understand that your day is going to come where you're not the king anymore and the court no longer bends the knee. But it's much more difficult to actually deal with it. It's very difficult. And I inadvertently moved myself into the role and the mode of, okay, let's just keep this going. Let's keep it moving. Here we go now. Come on. Because everybody was down. Everybody was just down. And so I became, instead of a leader, I became a cheerleader. And I kind of lost myself in that thing, because I had built myself into a guy who fully, completely understood morning entertainment radio. And I stopped being that guy. I started saying yes to things that management wanted for the show, things that Brian wanted. And I was absolutely, yeah, let's do that. When that core part of me knew much of it was the absolute wrong way to go. And I wound up paying the price for that adjustment that I tried to make.
I'm going to jump all over the place with you here, because again, I've only got a limited amount of time. First of all, tell people, before I forget, the whole reason you're on the show obviously is to pimp the book. Tell people, how do we get the book? Where do we find the book? What do we do to get the book, etc.? Give us the information.
Thank you, Kevin. The book is out publicly December the 6th. I would say hardcover. Those are sold out. We inadvertently, in this world we live in post-pandemic, the thicker stock paper for hardcover books is hard to get. And we were lucky enough a year ago to buy enough to print 5,000 copies of the hardcover. That sold out, so those are gone. But on December the 6th, we will release the softcover or paperback, the ebook, which you can read on your computer or your phone, or the audiobook, which we think a lot of people are going to want. I worked extensively on the audiobook. I narrate it. There are times when I'm telling stories, like the very first guest we had was Donny Osmond. And while we're having him in the room, we had our very first earthquake, the first for me. And Donnie went in the switchboard room where Laura was and all the other girls, and he calmed them down. And then he came back in, and on the worst keyboard I'd ever heard, he sang "Go Away, Little Girl." And we dropped that clip of him singing that into the audiobook, and
Very
it
nice.
scored. So all that is fine. And the audiobook, softcover, and the ebook will be available on December the 6th at our website, myadventureswithmarkandbrian.com. We're self-published. That's the only place you can get it, myadventureswithmarkandbrian.com. And the other thing that you should know is that after we've paid all the bills, 100% of the proceeds of this entire book project and the show coming up at the Saban is going to the rescue and the welfare of animals, dogs and cats in Southern California.
I am a dog person who married into a cat family, so now I'm a cat person. So thank you for both.
I love cats. I do, especially the ones that are affectionate and need my attention. The finicky ones I could do without.
Hear, hear.
But dogs are where my heart is.
Yeah.
My animals have given me so much unconditional love through the years, and I thought it was time for me to pay it back.
Well, I think it's great. I think it's great.
Thank you.
What would it take to get you to come back to broadcast radio again?
I wouldn't.
You're done?
I was approached by 100.3 The Sound in 2014. By the time I did it, it was 2015. And this was in the world of what we talked about, corporate takeover, where radio was all recorded. This station was not. It was owned by a small company that owned, I think, like 5 radio stations. And they offered me the opportunity to do the morning show. And I really wanted to do it from the standpoint that I knew I could put on a great morning show and do it on my own and do it the way that I knew how to do it. And the gamble was absolutely worth it. And I did it. And within a couple of months, we raced to number 4 in Los Angeles. And then after 8-9 months, the company that had lured me out of retirement to do it sold it to Intercom, which is one of those big corporate companies that I talked about. They immediately began firing people and shutting down entire divisions. And then I knew my fate when they started changing my show. They started adding music. And I told management, I don't think you need me anymore. The station is not going to support this. And ultimately, I was let go. So no, the radio that I loved and the way that I do it, which is an all-consuming 10 to 12 hours a day preparing for the show, it just doesn't exist for me. It just does not exist anymore. It's not just me. It's I have a real good friend, engineer, who basically the old school engineers for a radio station had to know how to cut wire and solder and all those things. That's gone.
Yeah.
That is completely gone. Now, most engineers for radio are IT guys. They're computer guys because that's what they need.
Right.
So my friend Barry, who solders and cuts and does that, he's trying to figure out what it is. How does he transition? What's his next thing? So, but I don't want to be a whiner. I'm saddened by it, but everything goes through a transition. Sure. And if you can't adapt, you have to move to something else.
Sure. Which is why, again, I joined the Peace Corps and left.
Yeah.
Got out. I wanted to thank you for what at least felt to me like a personal project of yours, which was your movie Mother Ghost.
Oh.
Talk about that one a little bit, because I don't feel like that one gets enough attention out there.
Thank you. It showed me how tough the movie business is. was involved in an acting class in North Hollywood. And this particular class I was taking because I had wanted to take the advice of a college professor who told me he thought that I was a naturally born actor. And I thought he'd lost his mind because I'd never acted in my life. But this guy was the head of the drama department trying to get me to come down and audition. I didn't. But years later in LA, I was taking this acting class and I was really good at it. And this class encouraged us to write scenes and do them. And this was the first time I had ever written anything. And so I started writing scenes and they were going well. And I finally wrote this one. My own mother was in the process of leaving me. She had Parkinson's and it was a slow, nasty way to go. And the fear that I carried at that point is that there would be something that I should say to her that I wouldn't. And it was a genuine fear because my mother was the most important thing in my world. So I wrote this scene about a guy whose mother has passed away, and he's kind of haunted by it because he didn't do or say the right things or the stuff that he wanted to say. And all of a sudden, he starts witnessing her jewelry appear in his house and all these other things. So he winds up in therapy. And so that scene, I wrote it, and I never actually did it in class. But a friend read it and he said, that is really good. If you would expand that, put a beginning and an end on it, you might have a movie. And that's what I started doing. And I brought in all my friends, some of the biggest names in the business: Dana Delaney, Kevin Pollak, Jerry Burns, Gary Marshall, Charles Durning, endless list of great people. And we made it. We shot that thing on weekends for a year. It took us to finish it. A lot of it was shot at the old KLOS building, which is no longer there. And we then took it out to film festivals, and we won Best Picture at every single one we attended. And even with that, no distributor would touch it. It sat for 7 years before it was finally released. And even then, it was released modestly. And so those that did see it have had great response from that, because it is a sweet film that I'm very, very proud of.
It is. My mom passed a couple of years ago, and I recently recommended that one to my sister. I forget it's streaming somewhere right now. And she was
probably Amazon.
Could be. And she was able to track it down and texted me through tears many, many times. She's like, "How dare you put me through this?" I'm like, "Nope, you needed to watch that. You needed to watch that."
It is we're all moved about anything that has to do with our mothers.
Yeah. Something about that. I was trying to think of favorite moments that I've had with your show, and I'm sure it's different than the favorite moments I would have had if you'd have asked me when I was in high school. Listening to some of the stuff in preparation for talking with you today, the story about you crapping your pants, which you include in the book, is just legendary. And Linda, your lovely wife, your patient, saintly wife's reaction to you.
What happened last night? Yeah, what Kevin's talking about is I went to Gino Vanelli is an incredibly good friend of mine. In fact, he's going to join me at the Saban show coming up December 3rd. He's not only performing, he's my music director, but he and I have been buddies. And he called me once and he said, "I'm going to be in LA. They're doing a documentary on Soul Train. And I was the first white guy on it. So I'm in it. So why don't we go to dinner afterwards?" And we did. And I won't go through the whole thing. It's in the book.
It is.
But I wound up thinking that I was going to expunge a little bit of gas. And of course it wasn't. And I released the chocolate man into my drawers right there and had to sit in it for 2 hours while I was with Gino and his brother Ross, who were the two men that brought us the song "I Just Want to Stop." And I too wanted to stop at that moment. But what's kind of fun is at the Saban show, I'm going to play the audio from the audiobook of that story while I stand there and let the audience watch me ride through it. And then Gino Vanelli's coming out. So yes, it'll be a big part of our show.
That is good. Like, I suppose it's because, again, I've gone up there in years, just as you have, and so I'm sitting there as I'm listening to it, going, "So that's coming. Okay, I have that to look forward to. That's all right. That's great."
The funny thing is that, we all have had a moment where we, as they say, sharded. We've all had that. It's happened to all of us. But what is wrong with a person that does that in a very public place with a very famous person and then goes on the air and tells everybody about it and then writes it in the book and plays it for an entire 2,000 people at the Saban? I think that there's something dislodged in my brain. This is the kind of thing you don't talk about. You don't tell people that it happened. And I'm yelling that I did it. So that's a problem. That right there is a mental problem.
And in my head, I'm picturing you that night as it's happening going, well, at least I have a story to tell tomorrow morning.
At that, I got to tell you, Kevin, at that moment, I wasn't thinking anything but get home, get out. And the bad part is that we were at the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I was wearing shorts. And when we got up to leave, the fear of some of that falling out onto the floor, and the place was packed, is just, I'm scarred enough that I'm telling all of you that I did it.
As I said, part of the whole reason you're talking to me now is to promote the book. So I'd want to point out this is one of the stories in the book. There's dozens of other stories in the book that they will make you laugh, they will make you cry, they will make you ask why would you possibly tell those stories, both in person, on the air, things like that. I didn't know a lot, obviously. We knew about you on the show, what you cared to show, what you cared to tell us. We didn't know what you chose to leave out. And there's a lot in that book that people don't know. What do you think is going to be the most surprising thing for people that start flipping through the pages?
When I decided to write the book, I'd never written a book. I'd written screenplays, obviously, and some other stuff, some essays and that kind of thing, but I'd never written a book. And in my mind, this would be the only book I would ever write. And I, number one, first and foremost, wanted this to be an adventure of stories about what was happening with Mark and Brian behind the scenes while you were listening to it. That's the point. That's the purpose of a book like this, to talk about stuff that you couldn't possibly know. And while it wasn't a plan that I had at the very beginning, I think the thing that so far, as I've been doing media interviews for the book, the thing that most people have been affected by is how very personal things get, as I shared with you some of the struggles that I personally dealt with during that very bad time, and the price that one pays. When you look at somebody in the public eye, it's easy to see, especially when that person is popular and making money, and it's easy to see, boy, that must be great. But I have to tell you, real life never stops.
Right.
And and I can tell you, I have had the absolute greatest day and the worst absolute possible day all in the same afternoon. And so I talk about those things. I share those things. And that's what a lot of people are bringing up.
Yeah. And like I said, as a longtime listener, it was an incredible read for me. I've followed your 100.3 Sound Show. I've followed the podcast you do with your wife, and occasionally, when you make fun of your kids and bring them on. I will continue to listen. If radio, as you say, is gone for you, is podcasting going to be it for you, or do you think there's something else down the road?
Well, Kevin, my problem is that even though the world that I lived in local radio broadcast is for me done, I am still addicted to what you're looking at right now, the ability to put on a set of headphones and speak into a mic.
Sure.
And so I think that podcasting will in some form always be a part of my thing. I have a state-of-the-art studio built in my home in North Carolina. And I think I will always be a part of that. I will always have something to say. The question is, does anybody still want to hear it?
What podcasts are you listening to right now? Any?
I don't actually listen to them.
No?
I find myself, especially for the past 3 years, this book project has been all-encompassing, and I've loved every moment of it. But I don't listen to local radio. I don't listen to podcast. I do, other than sitting, it's odd to say, but my life has always been busy because I choose it to be. I like always having projects and things to do, whether it's a podcast or a radio show or painting, whatever it is. I've now got grandchildren. I'm incredibly busy. And I love, because I'm busy with the stuff that I've chosen to be busy with. And so I'm incredibly happy. I can tell you the one guilty pleasure that I get. I was in radio for a little over 50 years, and 35 of that was spent doing morning radio, where I would get up every morning at 3:30. I had 2 alarm clocks, both battery, across the room. I've never been one to snooze push. And so that thing would go off at 3:30. I'd go across the room, turn them both off, shower, coffee, and go to work. Now that I don't have to do that, every morning I wake up whenever my body chooses to wake up, and I will lay in that bed, and I do it every day for 20 minutes, sometimes 30, and just lay there and look around and assess the day and take a look. I do that because I can, and I used to not be able to. Brian had a hysterical joke, and I loved it because it's true. He said, "We do this radio show for free. They pay us all that money to get up at 3:30 a.m. Because 3:30 in the morning, technically, yes, it is the morning, but it's also the middle of the night.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense. It's not right. It's not human. It's not normal. And I don't suggest that you do it.
Last question, then I'll let you go. I gave you my favorite moment on the show. If you were to take one moment and put it in the time capsule, what would it be?
Well, I think I would have to say, because this is not only a favorite moment of mine for many reasons, it's one of the listeners' favorite moments. And that was when we decided that we wanted to broadcast from Graceland, because they had opened up the tour there at Graceland. And they said no. And we didn't agree with that answer. So we had the engineering department rig up small umbrellas with microphones in the handles, and we broadcasted from the tour. Somebody called Graceland, told them what we were doing, and we were arrested by the Elvis cops in the TV room. And this is the reason that I remember it so well. They took us back up the stairs. It was the smallest staircase I've ever seen, and they took us through a door that said no admittance. And they took us into Elvis's kitchen/dining room. Now, this was before that was on the tour. Nobody had ever seen that stuff except Elvis and the people that worked at Graceland. And they sat us down at Elvis's dining room table where he used to eat his meals. And they took our little earplugs, but they left the umbrellas right in front of us. And we broadcasted the entire time from Elvis Presley's dining room until they kicked us out and walked us down Elvis's famous driveway through the gates, while Brian and I sang "Love Me Tender." And we tried to get the Elvis cops to join us, but the one on the left seemed pissy, so we dropped it. But that is such a well-remembered, well-known moment from our history that I think that would be my personal.
Well, Mark Thompson, thank you so much. Once again, the name of the book is Don't Bump the Record, Kid. It is found on myadventureswithmarkandbrian.com. I believe I got that right. I will be buying the audiobook in addition to the lovely advanced reader copy I was given. But thank you for taking these last couple of minutes here to talk with me.
Kevin, listen, I thought you did great, really great, and I would be glad to talk with you anytime.
I appreciate that. And again, I am LA-based, so if you ever need anything while you are out here, just call. I'm not kidding. Just call.
Well, you're a good man, Kevin. Thank you very much.
You take care. You have a great day.
Best to you.
Maybe it's streaming, or maybe it's playing at a theater near you. Either way, Tim Brennan is talking about movies with Kevin. So kindly listen up.
We are joined more or less via Zoom, via whatever the internet's going to give us, with our resident Tim, with our resident Tim, who is a film critic. Hello, resident Tim.
You're not wrong about any of that. That is totally accurate.
And before the mics went hot, we were discussing which movies we were going to talk about, and the minute I said I didn't want to talk about the new Will Smith movie, his eyes lit up as if he knew that he wanted now to talk about the new Will Smith movie. So let's, I guess, talk a little bit about the new Will Smith movie, and then we will segue into the movie I wanted to talk about.
Okay, well, we'll make this fast then for you. Okay, so I saw earlier week Emancipation, which is a film starring Will Smith, directed by Antoine Fuqua, and it is inspired by a true story. Have you seen the old photo from the Civil War called Whipped Peter?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not picturing it right now.
It's a most people have seen it. Odds are you have. I didn't know it was called that until just now. It's a famous photo of a formerly enslaved man showing the like nightmare of his back, of just this enormous amount of scar tissue on his back that came from like repeated beatings and whippings. And Emancipation is kind of about that guy. And Will Smith plays him. His real name was Gordon. In the movie, he's called Peter. There's very, very little known about his actual life. So in the grand tradition of Hollywood,
We
the
make it
movie
up.
kind of made a bunch of stuff up. Yep. And better yet, it made a bunch of stuff up in sort of the most obvious plotting way possible. So the movie is basically about Peter, who is an enslaved man, living with his wife and 3 or 4 kids on a plantation. And out of the blue, which happens, he is sold to the Confederacy to basically build a new railroad to ship arms and munitions. While he is working on the railroad, he sees a chance to escape, and he and 3 other guys take it and haul ass out of there into the swamps. And the plan is for them to escape to Baton Rouge, which the Union Army is occupying, and then and rescue his wife and kids. And along the way, he is pursued by Ben Foster's character, who is like a remorseless slave hunter. He fights an alligator. He performs feats of daring do that would destroy most other men. But unlike past Will Smith performances, he does not do it with a smile or a well-placed quip. He does it with his jaw like jutted firmly out in the sense of like he's gonna do this by God or die trying.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: Antoine Fuqua is a talented director. He directed Training Day. He directed Olympus Has Fallen. He's a good, strong director. He's a good, strong action director. And like, I am watching a movie about a real guy who was enslaved, running through the swamps in slow motion, or fighting an alligator, or climbing up a tree to get a bee nest so he can eat the honey within, and doing like regular action hero stuff. And I mean, there are not many human beings on the planet that like action movies more than me. I don't feel great about an action movie based on a real guy who, from what I understand, the real guy, while very strong, was not an action hero. He was a regular guy put into horrific circumstances and had to survive them. I'll say one more thing about it, and then we can move on to Glass Onion.
Move on to a non-Will Smith movie.
There's a moment in Schindler's List at the work camp that Ray Fiennes' Nazi character runs, where a woman who is a Jewish architect is trying to explain to other Nazis that like they're trying to build something, and she's telling them, if you build it this way, it is going to collapse. And she gives them a very well-reasoned argument based on her like years of experience as an architect. And Ray Fiennes' character listens and then shoots her in the head and kills her. And the way Spielberg shoots this moment is it's very matter of fact. There's no like slow motion of Ray Fiennes raising the gun, no shots of her eyes widening. No, it's a very quick matter of fact moment. He shoots her and then he goes about his business. And one of the reasons that Schindler's works as well as it does is it takes nightmarish moments and shoots them normally. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He makes the awful look commonplace, which, you know, if we had the misfortune to have been there, that's what it would have looked like for us. Emancipation takes the experiences of a regular guy and Hollywoodizes them up. I'm not saying it's offensive. I'm just saying it's kind of inefficient. And it really would have been so much better if that hadn't happened. So, but moving on to better and more entertaining films.
Well, I will say, again, much has been said about Will Smith, more than, you know, I'm way off in the wayside of Hollyweird, so I, you know, can only weigh in from that vantage point. But I will say that from my experiences with him, it is entirely possible that he's looking through the script and he thinks to himself or says out loud to the director, hey, we need to Will Smith this up. You know, we don't want to have this be a real moment. We need to have the Will Smith archetype, you know, busting heads and punching alligators and whatever else. And so, again, without knowing for sure, that would be my best guess as to what would happen.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying if it did happen, I wish it hadn't happened.
Yeah.
But
fair
you
enough.
know, it's also a movie that, like, it's not going to grab audiences. It's not really grabbing critics. I think it's a movie that is going to kind of fade away. 6 months from now, most people will forget that it even existed. And I guess, like, the last thing I'll say about Will Smith then is I would genuinely hope that he would do some work on himself and maybe work on being a better guy.
Yeah.
And then once he's worked on being a better guy, come back, do movies. Maybe America can actually work on this whole forgiveness thing that we like to talk about, since we are a Christian nation.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, we can't spit without hitting a Mel Gibson movie on some streaming platform these days. So it seems like our tolerance for, you know, bad behavior, bad antics, bad words is you know, yeah. There's room for everyone apparently.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Enter in life
You're
lesson.
not wrong.
Yeah, enter in life lesson on Twitter. But moving on to the sequel to Knives Out. You saw it. My family will be going and seeing it during the holidays. So without giving me any spoilers, tell me about Glass Onion.
Okay. So the premise of Glass Onion is an Elon Musk-esque billionaire, played by Edward Norton, invites his circle of friends to a private, I want to say Greek island, I could be wrong, for a weekend of fun and frolicking and solving a fake murder mystery. And along with those people, Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc is also invited. And that is the first of many mysteries, because as far as Edward Norton knows, he is not invited Benoit Blanc. And then someone actually turns up dead. And so the mystery must be solved. I thoroughly enjoyed Glass Onion. I'm not sure if it's a better film than Knives Out, which I really enjoyed. I think it's a funnier film than Knives Out. And for maybe the first 45 minutes to an hour, we get to see a very, very fussy Benoit Blanc that is funny as hell. Daniel Craig is having more fun with this performance than I think in any of his James Bond installments. I guess, and this isn't really a criticism, it's just more of an observation. One of the things that I really liked about Knives Out is that you had actors playing very different, almost inverted characters of the kinds of personas they usually play. So Chris Evans playing a scumbag, so on and so forth. This isn't really doing that. They have hired Edward Norton, who does a good job of playing weaselly intellectuals, and he's playing a weaselly intellectual. And so the film doesn't have like, when you see Dave Bautista is playing a Dave Bautista type of person, as is Catherine Hahn, and so on and so forth. So everyone is very good. The performances are not surprising, but they're entertaining. And you guys are going to have a good time. It's like, it is an intelligent, crafted like a Swiss watch kind of movie. And just like Knives Out, it has cogent things to say about American society right now, but it's not conking you over the head with its message.
Good.
Yeah, it is a very, very well done film. And the nice thing is I believe it drops on Netflix, I think in the next week or two.
Yeah, I think around Christmas time.
Right. I mean, it just had the 1 week theatrical run, and I was a little lucky in that I had some time open up in my schedule and I could nab a ticket. But you guys are going to have a great time with it.
Good. Like I said, I'm looking forward to that one. To me, the first movie, well, I guess it's not technically a sequel, though it is has the same character, but that sort of reminded me of the old NBC Mystery Wheel, where they had the Columbos and the Banacheks and all of those,
Yep.
where just there's a murder, and then somebody who's charismatic comes in to solve the murder, and you meet all the different weird characters along the way, and it just had that simple concept of a movie that they've just played perfectly with all the characters. So, like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the sequel.
Yeah, you're going to have a great time with it. And my understanding with Rian Johnson, I quite liked his Star Wars installment. I've liked other stuff he's done. From what I understand, if he spent the rest of his life making mysteries, he would be very, very happy. And that is his first love, is to sit down and do a whodunit. So if they can keep doing this for a while, that's going to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and if like you said, if Daniel Craig is enjoying it, as much as I am a fan of him as James Bond, he was not phoning it in the last two movies, but he was ready to be done the last two movies. Just
Yep.
His character didn't want to die at the end of the last movie, but he was like, "Oh, finally, sweet relief," And just,
yep.
If he's enjoying these mysteries, I'm looking forward to seeing as many of them as he wants to put out, like you said. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, excellent. So we covered a movie I didn't want to talk about, and we covered a movie I did want to talk about, and you didn't give me any spoilers, which is good. I was worried you were going to tell me who did it, but. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim Brennan. You can find his written reviews at aboutboulder.com. They're still there, correct? That's still where you're posting?
Yep, they're still there as well. Yes.
Excellent. And yeah, so we will check back in with you. I believe our next episode drops the week before Christmas, so we will check back in with you then for yet another one.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Take it easy. See you soon.
This has been the Get Off My Lawn podcast, brought to you by nobody. And let's not kid each other. Nobody listens to the closing credits, right? Unless we put an Easter egg or two after the credits. Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. Only one way to find out. Anyway, follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Get Off My Lawn Pod. Check out our SoundCloud at Get Off My Lawn Podcast, or subscribe to us on iTunes for the latest episodes. Questions or comments, or to suggest a guest, our email address is getofmylawnpod@gmail.com. The theme was written and composed by Brian Weideman. Check out his music at www.worldbri.com. That's WORLDBRI.com. The logo was designed by Julie Contreras at Urban Bird Design. Go to urbanbirddesign.com to learn more. Thanks for listening. Tell a friend.
All right, going by now is a group of small people on small motorcycles, and we're not sure why they're there.
But that's the color and the pageantry.
You know it is.
That's what we've been talking about.
Now we have... Oh, the world's largest turkey tostada.
Oh, we've been looking forward to seeing what this looks like, and then believe us, it's really nothing special.
This is...
Now, it's actually food, though. Is that actual food there?
Right.
Okay.
In the back of a pickup truck, they put together a turkey tostada that doesn't look that good to eat, so you might not want to try it.
And everybody's sitting on the truck, all dressed up in beautiful colors. Again, it's the color, the
and pageantry
of the Mark and Brian pre-Thanksgiving Day Parade.
You got her, baby. All right, now we've got coming up another marching band, and it looks to be the USC Trojan Marching Band. You know, because USC wasn't coming, and we're not supposed to think they were.
No, and for some reason they came. And they're looking good. They're about 20 members strong. These are the rebels of the school, the people that don't mind getting in a little trouble.
Kind of neat, too. They didn't wear their uniforms. They just wore whatever they had.
They're all wearing the Hassel cord.
Let's take
good game. They're running over here.
I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going in the sunshine of your arms. Yeah! Do it! The USC Marching Band! Yeah! Yeah!
Beautiful!
That was great.
Beautiful! All right, they're going to progress on down the parade route now. We're going to see what else we have. Ah, ladies and gentlemen, we have some of the staff members coming up in just a few moments here. The USC Marching Band moving on now.
All right, coming up in a beautiful classic car, which we're going to tell you about as soon as we find it on the page. Oh, you don't know. Gino Michelini, ladies and gentlemen, and Linda Clayton. Gino Michelini and Linda Clayton.
And Gino, of course, doing a fine job with that Miss America wave, as is Linda Clayton got on that cowboy hat.
Would have been nice if Gino would have bathed, wouldn't it have been?
It always is.
That's all right, though. No
Linda got on that cowboy outfit. She likes to do that lasso thing so very much. Gino Michelini, kind enough to come down. Gino hadn't seen the bright light of 7 o'clock in the morning in most of his life.